Hello, I'm Mary V. Today, let's talk about how to change a habit on the violin. Now, you know that time when you say, I'll go and have a cup of tea, and you say, oh, this time I'll make myself a coffee. And you end up making a cup of tea because you've got this habit of making a cup of tea. Well, we all do that, but the violin is no different. So when we put the violin under our chin and we hold the bow, we have a habitual response in our body and in our mind. So you've got to get away from your ordinary responses, and the best way to do it is off the violin with miming. For example, if you know what you're wanting to aim for example, by looking at YouTube videos and say, I'd like a bow hand like this, and then you need to just go in front of a mirror and manipulate your hand until it's in the right place. But the thing to do then is to take your hand off, put it back on again, and see if you can get the nice shape that you want. Just like that, without any playing or anything else. So that you're asking the right questions. How does my hand feel? Is my thumb nice and relaxed? Is it bent? Is it straight? Ask yourself questions about each and every finger. Can I move my first finger? Can I move my pinky? What happens when I put my bow upright? Yes, feels nice and light. What happens when I bounce my bow a little bit? Does it start to revert? So that's the thing. You've got to ask yourself questions, and you've got to become really aware of what you're doing. And that's very different from the automatic habitual response, right? That's what I do, and then I change it. No, don't go into your habitual thing and change it from there. Start from almost nothing, so that you just go right back to basics. So, for example, if you want to have your hand closer to the bow because it's very upright like that, you need to actually be willing to manipulate your fingers down so that, it is more curled around. So the essential thing is that you register with your mind what the ideal is, what you're wanting to aim for, before you go anywhere near your violin. Even that, if I take my trusty wooden spoon, it might be better to just not have the bow at all in order to change bowing habits. If you're like this, then ask yourself, why is my arm so low? Why am I playing so rigidly? You can actually work it out, that you need a bit of movement and you need your arm to be involved in the stroke. Now, I know it's difficult to know what it is you need to aim for and what your problems actually may be. It's difficult to analyse them if you don't have a teacher, if you're just on your own. But one thing that can help you is your style. If you think about your style, and you don't look like the violinist you see on YouTube when you're like this, well, you can start to notice that. You can pick out a few players that you really like, that you like the way that they move. It looks like you, or it could look like you. And you can copy them and just copy the actual style. You don't need to know much about technique to do that. You can just copy the actual style where their arm is. Do it from the front and from the side. And see if you can sort of copy some of the movements that you see going on, right? There is an awful lot you can do to improve your playing through observation alone. So if your style is rather nice and everything with your wooden spoon or your pen or whatever, then try it with your bow, but support your bow with your other hand, so that your hand is free to make experiments. For example, it may be that your fingers are quite close to the bow, very good, but they're very straight on, and you haven't got the sort of freedom of movement, and there's tremendous strain on the pinky. It's taking the whole weight. Well, you may start to observe that players play like that. They shift their fingers so that it's pointing in towards the bow. There's so much control that way. And the control of the bow is really in the first finger. And the weight is taken by the pinky, like that. So there's lots that you can start to observe if you take yourself away from your norm, which is just playing and practicing and straining and hoping that everything's going to get better. It won't get better like that. It just gets more and more and more ingrained. And that's why you don't really change a habit. You just abandon it and replace it with new stuff. And the new stuff is, the new habit is formed in a different circumstance so that your mind is fresh, asking questions. So once you get used to practicing that way and changing something, and then the test is going back to the violin, but make that a very, very simple session where you're really holding a wooden spoon like this. You're saying, I can do it with a wooden spoon, right? That's pretty ideal. That's what I want. So you've got to keep reminding yourself of what it is that you've established, what you want. And then when you take your bow, do the same thing. And you need to go backwards and forwards with it so that the mind is saying, that is exactly right. I'm asking questions. What about my pinky? What about my thumb? Does it feel that I can move? You know, that's the goal. Backwards and forwards with a lot of patience so that the actual body movement becomes more established. And it's really to go slow enough so that the mind is involved in the process. So often we pick up the violin and we just go slap the bow on the string and then we think, oh, that doesn't sound right. Don't ever be afraid to go back to basics, because reminding yourself of what the actual basic movements feel like is the key to making changes on the violin. Let's have a little look at how to have a look at the left hand. There's so much squeezing going on. There's so much difficulty with tension and rigidity. It's such a good idea to get away from your violin and have a look at what's going on. Try to make your thumb a pivot. It's amazing how that releases the grip between the first finger and the thumb. If you know that you're able to move all of the fingers using the wrist and the thumb as a pivot like that, right? A lot of your problems can go away. So that's the ideal again, right? That's the way that you want your fingers to feel. So again, you need to register that with your mind. Go slowly. Go very slowly until you sort of memorize the feeling. So then when you do it on the violin, it's exactly the same as what you were doing on the wooden spoon. This is actually quite a pivotal exercise for everyone to go back to, just to remind themselves on the violin how it feels to be free without this clutching, without this tightness. So these are very, very important ways to replace a habit. And do remember, it's not through sheer straining and hard work to change a habit, but through patience. So it's a different mindset to replace a habit. There's a lot of patience, self-awareness and questioning, and there is an ideal that you want to follow. That's quite important to know what it is you want to change to. So I am trying to impart as much technical knowledge as possible for you to make your experiments so that you can have a lot of knowledge about how to customize your own technique, because everyone's technique does need to be customized. But starting your session with your brain in automatic mode is not helpful, because you end up just doing things like that, which is useless. So even if we're playing a piece, say take the Thais meditation, we've got to break it down and make sure that we're playing nice vibrato where we want to, shifting, you know, all the notes need to be checked for intonation. So that's the essence of being able to replace habits and have your mind really, really engaged in the whole of your violin experiments. And that's really the key to being able to make big changes and improvements on the violin. So I hope you enjoy your experiments and I'll see you next time. Bye for now. Bye.